Good morning and welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church, a liberal religious community where love works, where we gather to explore the eternal, to nurture community, and to build a more just world. Together, we dare to embody the beloved community where all are welcome. Please know that whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are from, whatever your beliefs, life circumstance, immigration status, you are welcome here. If you are new to Cedar Lane, we have a small gift for you. Please raise your hand if you are comfortable doing so, and keep it raised for a moment so our ushers can come and find you. Awesome. All are invited to stay after the service to enjoy coffee and conversation. If visitors choose to use the yellow mug, our members and friends will be sure to greet you. And now, let us experience the joyous, loving community that is Cedar Lane. Please rise and greet your neighbors.
People sometimes ask, is pride a protest or a party? And the answer, of course, yes. And why not? Why not rejoice as we resist, dance as we demand change, celebrate as we create community that delights all who we are? So bring all of that with you this morning. Bring your policy and demands. Bring your glitter. Bring your Supreme Court broken heart. Bring your rainbow socks. Bring the emptiness you feel for the siblings gone too soon. Bring your Gloria Estefan remix. Bring your tender hope for change. Bring your garnish eyeshadow. Bring your spirit, tattered and battered by a world that seems insistent on choosing fear and hate. Gather all these things and bring them here, to a place where we don't have to shoulder all these burdens or celebrate these joys alone. Come, let us celebrate together, shall we?
The dishes and put them away. I've told you a story, tucked you in tight at the end of a knockabout day. As the moon sets its sail to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep company. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind. Some go in their own way in time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream of a day never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words love you leave behind when you're done.
As Mary Means comes up to light the chalice, please rise in body or in spirit to read our chalice lighting that is printed in the insert of your order of celebration. We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment. We light this flame for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who stand on the side of love for all. We light this flame for those who have been ridiculed that they may find peace, for those who have fought to marry, that they may celebrate, for those who live in uncertainty in the world, that they may have hope. We light this flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love. We light this flame to celebrate our kaleidoscope of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. For this, we light this flame. Please remain standing as we sing our first hymn, number 126. Let us enter this time to gather strength and inspiration as we bear witness to the joys and sorrows in our community. When I hold up my hands, I invite you to say, "We hold you in our hearts." Awesome. If you are living through the small and extraordinary milestones of life, we hold you in our hearts. If parenting is your spiritual practice, we hold you in our hearts. If you live or care for someone with grief or chronic pain, we hold you in our hearts. If you are struggling with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental illness or addictions, We hold you in our hearts. If you have suffered abuse or injustice, we hold you in our hearts. We mourn the passing of Martha Quayle, beloved Cedar Lane member and wife of Harold Quayle, on Wednesday, December 26. Thank you.
I invite us to center ourselves for a time, bringing our mind, body, and spirit into this space made sacred by our presence and the presence of the Holy, known by many names, in which we live, move, breathe, and have our being. And as we go to that deeper place within, that place of silence and honesty, courage and compassion, let us hold in our hearts the joys and sorrows that were spoken, as well as those that remain unspoken. Would you join me now in the spirit of prayer with these words from Jade Sylvan? As we gather in the darkness and the light, let us give thanks and witness to our chosen families who we have traveled a lifetime to find. We gather with our beloveds in living rooms, in churches, in kitchens, in bars, and in bedrooms, on Skype and on Twitter, at the theater, in our memories, in our hopes, in the silence and in the noise. We witness and hold these families, no matter their size, families of 1 or 1,000, families of 90 years or of 90 minutes. We rejoice in the opportunities to care for our beloveds, to feed them, to listen to them, to share our spirit's fears and desires, and simply to share space with this precious kingdom, holy and sanctified as any bloodline. We celebrate our shared time as holy days. For every time we commune with our beloveds, we make that time and space holy. And for those who are alone, we wish hallowed solitude, that they may feel love of self and love of the mystery. May those who spend these days and nights of sacred darkness alone know they are important, they are connected, they are divine. We celebrate each holy day as we find them together. May we be present in this time of darkness and light. May we hold one another in the quiet. May we do what we can to make sure everyone we love is warm and full of food and hope and love. May it be so. Blessed be. Now, as we enter the silence together, those among us who are grieving a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss are invited to rise in body and or in spirit and to remain rising until the hymn.
Hi, please turn to the responsive reading printed on the insert in your order of celebration and respond with the bolded. With gratitude for the freedom to be our true, authentic selves. With the courage that comes from challenging fear. With sorrow for those who could not be here with us today. With grief for those whose pain was unbearable and who left us too soon. Looking ahead to the justice still withheld. With the confidence that a sense of community banishes isolation and loneliness. With a rainbow flag flying high, a sense of beloved community among us, and the joy that comes from making new connections. Thank you.
We say in our church that the offering is a sacrament of the free church. What we mean by this is that we believe it is a blessing to be able to govern and support our religious community ourselves, to make possible by our generosity everything we dream of and do to live out our shared values. Every week, we lift up the spiritual value of generosity by taking an offering for the ministries of this church. Our plate, then, as it is passed among us, becomes filled with the evidence of that generosity. It is our harvest, gathered every week for what most nourishes us. The ushers will now come among you to receive the gifts of the congregation. The morning offering will be most gratefully received.
With a mind that holds a plan, with a hand that holds a key, with a heart that holds a dream, love reaches out. When a family's torn apart, when the street is all you have, when your faith begins to break, love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out. Through the pain your eyes have seen, through the voices in your head, through the wars you still endure, love reaches out. To the man who asks for change, to the mother and her child, to the elder all alone, love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out. Let us take this night to strengthen and inspire. Let love and compassion be the source that fuels the fire. If you find yourself in need, if you fear what lies ahead, if we forge a path of trust, love reaches out. Where hope replaces hate, where wounds begin to heal, where we all will have a home, love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out.
For the gifts which we are and the gifts which we bring and share to make this a very beloved community, may we be truly grateful. May we be committed to using these gifts to make a difference in the world and to keep sharing as long as we can.
Wow, it's been such a nice service. I'm now going to bore you, hopefully not too much, with a history lesson. So, not long ago, certainly within the lifetime of many in this room, it was unacceptable and to be gay, even in Unitarian Universalist circles. Times have changed, and being welcoming is so much of who we are now as a faith community, but most of us do not know how it all began. So I wanted to take this opportunity today to share a little bit of that history. So travel back with me to 1969, only a few months after Stonewall in New York City. Reverend James Stahl, a Unitarian Universalist minister, did a radical thing at the Liberal Religious Youth Conference, where he had been invited to speak. Leland Bond Upson one of Stoll's friends, wrote about what happened.
The third night of the conference, after dinner, Jim got up to speak. He told us that he'd been doing a lot of thinking that summer. Jim told us that he could no longer live a lie. He'd been hiding his nature, his true self, from everyone except his closest friends.
If the revolution means anything, Jim said, it means we have a right to be ourselves without shame or fear.
He then told us that he was gay, and had always been gay, and it wasn't a choice, and he wasn't ashamed anymore, and that he wasn't going to hide it anymore. And from now on, he was going to be himself in public. After he concluded, there was dead silence. Then a couple of young women went up and hugged him, followed by general congratulations. The few who did not approve kept their peace.
Stone recalled,
I had served a congregation in eastern Washington state for 7 years. And in February of '69, I resigned and was planning on going on to another church. They gave me a 6-month sabbatical, which I spent in Berkeley, California, and that turned out to be true fate, because spring of '69 in Berkeley was when the roof came apart. You know, People's Park. And the vestige of the gay liberation in the Bay Area, as well as, of course, Stonewall, I realized I had to make a choice and either spend my life in the closet or come out and deal with the consequences.
Stoll became the very first openly gay minister in the United States at that point. Over the next couple of years after his speech at the youth conference, Stoll wrote articles and preached about, but he actually never served again as a Unitarian Universalist minister, although the UUA took no action against him, and he remained a clergy in good standing for the rest of his life, but he could never get another pulpit. So others picked up where Stoll had left off. The chief among them was the Reverend Richard Nash, a fiery leftist minister from Los Angeles. Nash was a former minister and a veteran of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. In December 1970, Nash and fellow Unitarian Floyd Hoff organized a conference for people whose sexual orientation is gay and whose religious orientation is liberal. And it was held at the First Unitarian Church of Los Angeles. And they insisted that the publicity had to include a statement that the use of their facilities did not imply endorsement. So that was back in 1970. After the conference, the attendees started to meet regularly, and that gay fellowship became the very first gay organization within a mainline religious tradition. The UU World, our magazine, actually picked up and wrote about the conference, and Eglin Blair, who was a Unitarian in Canada, who was trying to get the First Church of Toronto to give them space, saw the article, and Blair and Nash quickly became friends. And they decided to plan a gay presence at the 1971 GA conference. They were able to have a mailing list, and so Nash and Blair sent out letters to people on the mailing list from the conference, eagerly inviting them to come to GA. But to be sure that no gay UU would miss their message, they actually took out an ad in the World saying, "Are you a gay UU? Do you agree it's time to get together and get our act together? If you're gay, we want to hear from you. And Blair and Nash listed their contact information in the World. They had no plan of action save to bring as many gays as possible out of the woodwork and to begin organizing for an effective action within the denomination. Just what kind of meetings there would be, business or social, that would have to wait until they all came together at GEA. So GEA, General Assembly, which is our national annual conference for all Unitarians from across the country, they had their visibility there. They took out a booth at the exhibit hall, and they were soliciting more members at the conference. And by the end of the week, the UU Gay Caucus, as Nash and Blair named their child, rose from 2 members to 14. That doesn't seem like a lot, but think about the time when everybody was so closeted. To have 12 other members join them was significant and huge. Around the same time, in the ethos, in the Unitarian Universalist ethos, About Your Sexuality, which was the Unitarian Universalist new sexuality curriculum, got published. And within that curriculum, they included homosexuality and bisexuality as an option of loving. During the pilot, a lot of response came out around that section that it was a little to be desired, and it fell a little short. And so the members of the UUA actually invited the UU Gay Caucus to help them revise that curriculum, and the new curriculum came out in 1973. And one of the people who helped revise it, and he was at the Department of Education at the UUA at the time, was Eugene Nevius, who actually wrote the 2 verses of the first song that we sang, the hymn that we sang today. So 2 years later, back in 1973, the delegates passed at GA a resolution to create an Office of Gay Affairs. Imagine, 5 years from when Stoll came out in '69 to 1973, we had an Office of Gay Affairs created at the Unitarian Universalist Association. When have Unitarian Universalists ever done something that quickly? At least on paper anyway. I have never seen it actually in our history happen like that. But there were a lot of things going on in the culture. With the Metropolitan Community Church, MCC, was the Christian church that was created by Troy Perry for gay Christians to come together. They were starting to bloom, and that was in 1969. And as they grew, they were having a hard time actually finding space. And so our Unitarian Universalist siblings across the country lent them space so that they could have their services. So we have that, coupled by the gay movement, who also would hold their meetings in our spaces in the women's movement. All of that, as well as having AYS, the sexuality curriculum being taught to our kids, all of a sudden, there were conversations about homosexuality and bisexuality, and people were starting to confront their phobias and their biases. And some of the gay people that came to their weekly meetings ended up in our pews as out gay people. and our congregations were forced to deal with their biases. Blair lamented that much effort of the UU Gay Caucus was spent on creating materials to explain gay issues to straight congregations, but very little was provided to help sustain gays in service of their own. In most gay caucus groups, they failed to develop growth groups and other processes to help us overcome the years of internalized safe hatred many of us had suffered and yet to overcome. But the need was great from the congregations, so the UUA picked up that mantle and created the welcoming congregations so that our congregations could deal with their bias and be able to genuinely include all sexual orientations within our church community. So that's how the welcoming program began. So that the caucus didn't have to do it, the UUA and the Church Office of Gay Affairs decided to create and develop that program. The welcoming program was then further expanded to widen our circle for our bisexual and transgender siblings so that they could also be welcomed and we could genuinely live our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Now, more than 60% of our Unitarian Universalist congregations in America are now welcoming, and in fact, I looked it up, 99% of our Canadian churches are welcoming today. So they're a little ahead of us, but we have still a long way to go. We have had many members here in our congregation that weren't ever here when we went through our welcoming program back in 1985. We were actually one of the first adoptees of the program, and we actually did the second portion for our bisexual and transgender brethren back in the early 2000s. I checked with Marge actually before the service began to make sure that I had the correct dates. So it's been a while, so it's time for us to, I think, revisit the program and talk about what it means to be welcoming, not only to our LGBT siblings, but also to our other siblings that are different from us. You know, Fred Small said, "We will not be measured by our words or our deeds. It will be the love we leave behind when we are gone." We're on the cusp of turning to 2019. What does Cedar Lane want to be? How are we going to boldly embody beloved community? We need to be mindful and work towards having Cedar Lane be on the inside what our community surrounds us is on the outside. And that is a multicultural, multi-generational, multi-sexual orientation, and multi-gendered community. I hope that for all of us. Now, when I came out the first time, I have to say that because every time I meet new people, I am constantly coming out. My mother was incredibly worried that her baby girl would be hurt by some stranger. And as a teenager, of course, I was invincible. I didn't think anything about it. But as I've aged and have seen the amount of hate that has surfaced in the world, especially within these last 2 years, I now understand what my mother's fear and concern was. Mary and I, my wife, we went to Morocco a couple of months ago, And I found myself intentionally putting myself back into the closet. I had not been in that closet for over 40 years, and it was a little too small for me, I'd have to tell you. And I felt like I had a part of my whole self cut off from me, because I didn't know how to be anybody than be the full me. I can't imagine how others might feel who have to live their life only partially themselves because of the need for safety, either in their home or in their work or even in their religious community. It's so hard. And imagine back in 1969 when a lot of our brethren had to do that as gay people. Stoll was very, very brave to start that ball rolling, to become the very first out gay minister in the country. And since then, we've had many, many more. I could not stand here today as an out lesbian minister if it weren't for the likes of Stoll and many others before me that have paved the path for me to stand with you today. I hated doing it. I hated going into the closet, but I didn't want to become a statistic, even though Morocco is the most liberal Muslim country. I still felt a need, I had to do that because I didn't know how hate would surface. And we don't want Cedar Lane to be like that. We want people to be able to bring their full selves in to be with us so that we can gladly receive the gifts of the full community. So as we move into next year, let us live more fully into becoming that beloved community we so desperately want to be, to widen that circle so that love, as Jenny said, can reach out. So may it be. Amen. Please rise in body and or in spirit for our final hymn, 318, We Would Be One. That the text was actually written for our liberal religious youth, for their conference, when they came together with the Unitarian youth and the Universalist youth, came together to model what would become our Unitarian Universalist Association back in 1961. So let's sing, We Would Be One.
Understanding of who we are. searching for that meaning which finds our heart and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
With what benediction shall I leave you? This, in your life, may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into every moment. May you live at peace with your world and at peace with yourself. And may the love of truth guide you in your everyday. Amen.